health.
Focus,
And
healthy family.
oh, dang it, Don, how do we were
I
just
I
talking about
get
our
I love
lives.
it. I get a promotion from you from on our first one, we had a promotion. I got to be
I know.
occupational now I get a whole new branding. I love it. It's great.
Yes. Well, and Don and I were just talking about how life in the background
Oh,
is
yeah.
stressful.
Yep.
Yeah, and we're both going through some stressful times, and it's very fitting because today we're gonna talk about recognizing stress in our teens and what does that look like. So, Don, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Like I said, yeah, there is a lot of stuff going in the background, one of the things I wanna talk about today is how to really recognize stress because I think that's a problem for all of us. I mean, even adults, and senior years, like I'm getting towards, is really recognizing when you have that stress. And I think for teens and young adults, it's really hard to recognize because we're just going at life. And in a way, sometimes I think we have a little bit of a immortality in a teen that doesn't believe it'll ever have that kind of problem or stuff like that might be going on. So we really want to recognize it.
Yes, and Don, you brought up a good point. We're going through it. We just kind of barrel through. And, I know for me physically, I'll go and go and go and go, and then all of a sudden my body will just say,
Enough.
"No,
Yeah,
you're not
yeah,
going anymore. You need to
yeah.
stop."
It
Right?
I call it the, 2 by 4 to the head sometimes. Because, like I said, I went through it to a heart attack place, so I didn't recognize how stressed I was, or maybe I did, but I just didn't do enough about it. And so I think it's important when we're talking about college and kids going to college, I think it's important for them to understand how much stress affects your thinking process. And if they are really working towards the good grades and doing well in school, the fact that stress can slow that down, that can bring that productivity down, bring those grades down, because they just can't, their thought process isn't all there. And so finding ways to handle that stress can really help to boost grades, boost their way of getting through school and all of that.
Well, and you think about this, even from that period, I would say junior year, maybe even midway through junior year, to when they're graduating, the stressors that they have on them, they've never experienced. They've never had to experience this whole idea of going out and being an adult and figuring out their life, right? Or
Mhm.
how they feel it looks that they've got to figure out what is going to be their career for the rest of their life. They've got to figure out I'm going to move away from mom and dad possibly to go to college. I'm moving into a situation where I don't even know what it looks like. There's so much weighing on them that it looks like they're taking it in stride. I can tell you when I sent my oldest one off to college, we were talking about how much fun it was going to be and how much he's going to enjoy it. And the part that we forgot to prep him for was that there's a lot of changes that are going to happen that you're not going to be prepared for, or at least you're going to have to get through them. And I think that's a common kind of challenge that we might have. But how would have I recognized some of that stress in Chris when that was all going on?
Well, it's looking for the signs first, looking for, uh, well, big one. And you and I were talking a little bit about this, the stomach. I see a lot of this in college students, having stomach issues, not being able to, getting reflux, getting different pains in the stomach. And that can be a true sign of stress because stress, the stomach has a lot of relationship when it comes to the brain and to stress and all of that. So if you see those kind of signs, maybe it's fatigue, not sleeping well, or they find headaches, things like that, heart racing, panic attacks, and the thing that they really want to do is to not. I think we have to learn as parents not to preach to them. So we hear them, they say on the phone or when they're in, my stomach just really hurts. And we immediately want to say, okay, well, you need to take some, this, that, we start talking about medicines and this, that, and try to fix it versus let's dig into it more. Let's ask questions like, how long has it been going on? When do you feel it? Is it before an exam? Is it after an exam? That'll help to tell us that it's really truly stress that's causing it. Not that it is there isn't something physical about it and that we need to
Mhm.
do something about the physical, but really plowing into getting down to the root of what's going on, and that it's not necessarily the stomach that's really the issue. It's the fact that the stress and the fears or whatever that are behind it.
Well, and Don, we talk about this every time we talk. It still comes down to communication.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and just
yeah,
having those communications, and I loved, that you talked about don't try to fix it,
yeah,
because I think so often, as parents, for years, we've been fixers, and at this point in our kids' lives, it is all about letting them have these experiences and letting them think through it, but for you to be there as a sounding board and for you to start being there as a consultant, not as a manager of their lives, and this is another one of those opportunities.
yeah.
But I love that you're helping us with what are the warning signs, because, now I think we can put our antennae up a little bit and say and start asking the questions versus, telling them how they need to handle it.
Well, and to go a little bit deeper is that stress and anxiety is really fight or flight. And when we have
Mhm.
fight or flight, which is a natural process, it's our cautionary process. But when we have fight or flight, it is literally closing down parts of the brain. It's either closing them down or hampering them. And one of them is the creative thinking part of the more upper end of our thinking process that it's hampering, and it's also affecting the immune system. So, in thinking about that, think about that. You're fogged over, you can't think straight, and you're supposed to try to do your homework, or you're supposed to do the test that's coming up, or you're supposed to, write that paper, and you can't think straight. Well, stress is playing a big role in that. So, understanding that and the real physical effects of stress can really help you then to start working through it you know and one of the ways to it, I mentioned this to you, is I like the cliche of work hard, play hard, but I want to add one into that: work hard, play hard, and relax hard. and that
Mhm.
and I'm not giving an okay permission slip to drinking till you pass out as far as your relaxation. I'm talking about real setting it into your schedule, even break time, that you just let yourself go in to do something that you're passionate about. Go ride a bike, go, play basketball, if that's something that really relaxes you, that you're really into, that you really like. Listening to music, giving yourself a break from having to think, for even if it's 5 minutes, but giving yourself that time to really relax hard, let it go. Meditate. Some of that to that age group would go meditate. What but meditation is just really getting into what you lose yourself into. If you play basketball and you don't think about anything else but shooting that hoop and making those that play. That to me is like as a meditation in a way. It's a way of really truly letting yourself let go.
So what I kind of hear you talking about is, I know in those high school years, a lot of times as parents, it happened in my house, I hear it happening in other households, that what you're still sleeping, it's 11 o'clock and you're still in bed. And, I know that rhythms in these kids are different, right? And that
Hmm.
they do stay up late, and, you know, they're you probably have better terms for this, but just the way they're built, that's kind of what's supposed to happen. But and so I like to think about that and acknowledge that, and make that okay to an extent,
Yeah.
where they need this sleep. But then what I also hear you saying is, when our kids are in college and we don't have eyeballs on them all the time, to have these conversations around, how's your stress level? I know these classes are hard. I know midterms are coming up. You're getting to the end where you're going to graduate. How is your stress, and how are you managing that? And are you taking time for yourself, and really kind of promoting that? Because I don't think that we're great at that in the US, period.
No.
So to really just make it okay to have that me time, we always hear that for women. It's always like, well, are you taking time for yourself? And I think, for these kids to know too, it's okay to not be going, going, going all the time.
Well, yeah, and might it be possible that they can shape their schedule around their patterns too. I know it's important as far as sleep is to get into a ritual of time, a ritual of when I wake up and when I go to bed, at least, probably within an hour of that. So you set your clock,
Mhm.
we have a sleep clock, I call it, that we need to set. And it's really setting a pattern of I go to sleep here and I wake up here. Little harder to do in college. Because you're partying,
It is.
you are, you having different activities and stuff. So, but to allow yourself when you need to sleep to be able to sleep and find the right time to do it, even if it means, in the break time of a class, taking a nap. I mean, that sounds childish, but it refreshes the brain, and you really want to do that. So, you know, even planning that into your schedule can be helpful, I would imagine, to plan out a time to lay back, to let go, relax hard, like I said,
Mhm.
where you really let go, and you're not thinking about the next paper you got to write or the next, activity you got to do. You're just letting yourself go. That sounds too simple, but it's really true.
Well, most of the things that we know are good for us are fairly simple. It's
Well,
always get back to basics and I think this is one of them.
and in a way, when you said about asking them, "How's your stress?" That might be I'm sorry, I didn't. I didn't turn my phone off. Um, to ask them in a way that, because I think if you ask them, "How's your stress?" they're going to say, "Oh, it's okay." It doesn't register real well with them. Versus again, like asking about the signs. Hey, how's the sleep going? Or if you notice something about them, say, "Hey, I noticed this was going on. What can you tell me a little bit more about that?" Or so you're not like pinpointing them with a a why question. That's kind of a why question, and why is defensive to me. Um,
Mhm.
you know, so I would think about how you word it so that it doesn't come across as something that they're just going to go, "Okay, I'm fine." It's okay. Well, yeah. So you know, ask them kind of an open end question, I guess, too, somehow. So it's a lot about the wording.
Right, and I would tell you too as a parent, that the first couple times you start to probe, they may not open up about it,
Yeah,
right? That they might need a few times to start asking those questions for them to even think about it and
yeah,
realize that there is something happening to them, and then that they can kind of step into those conversations and feel like it's an open opportunity for them versus
yeah.
us again going in and trying to fix because they're not going to just answer these questions right away.
Well,
In
yeah.
most
If you haven't like done that from real young, where then yeah, it's going to take a while for that. But I always tell parents when about the communication is to stick with that kind of way of doing it. Stick with the good communication, no matter how they respond to it, because it'll let them know that, hey, you're there and you're open for conversation. And I think from what I've seen and what I've worked with, it comes around. But initially, yeah, you know, my daughter will still do. Oh, don't use that communication stuff on me, Dad. She knows now because I've done it for so long that I have to like reshape the wording for her to make it sound different from what it used to be. So yeah, it'll come around. It'll take time.
All right. Well, Don, thank you so much. And I am going to try this one more time. I am with Don Grodoff with Focused Healthy Family. His information is scrolling across the bottom. So if you're interested in talking to Don about his work with families, please reach out. And Don, thank you so much. And
Well,
we'll
thank
we'll
you.
talk again soon.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, Chris, and take care.
Okay.